the Pop Culture Field Manual.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Pop Culture Field Manual podcast, sitting right at the intersection of weapons, action. That'll come in handy later. The military and, of course, pop culture. If you're just joining us for the first time, my name is Cameron Fathom. I'm a former Army Ranger, and with me, as always,
Israel Wright, former Green Beret. It's good to be back, folks. As always, this is a great time, and today, very excited. We're taking on an entire genre, basically, and that is the genre of action movies. Just like our tagline, every time we intro the show, weapons, action, the military, and pop culture. And today, we're taking that slice of pie called action, and we're just going to do a deep dive, baby. We're going to talk about what we like, what we don't like, what defines the genre, and we are very excited. We're going to have a very special interview later on in the show with amazing, phenomenal action director Rawson Marshall Thurber. I mean, he directs other stuff too, but more recently, he's been doing a lot of action/comedy stuff, and we're going to talk with him a little bit later on in the show, so stay tuned, folks.
Absolutely. And, we're very excited for this interview, but even more excited, the entire action genre is one that is loaded with excitement.
Yes.
Now, I've always been an action movie fan. Izzy, I'm sure I can speak for you when I say you're an action movie fan as well, correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Grew up watching it, a little kid all the way up through. You just, a good action movie can kind of it makes your day and it gets you excited, gets you pumped, and then it stays with you. A really good action movie stays with you to the point where I'm sure we'll talk about a few of them, for decades, right? There's those seminal action films or even action sequences, maybe not necessarily in an action film itself, but an action sequence where it's like, oh, it's iconic. It's like, remember
it's unforgettable.
Yeah, exactly. So many people walking away from so many explosions. It's ridiculous.
So many. It's like when you see your first pair of boobies for the first time.
Yeah.
That image is burned in your head.
You never forget your first pair.
You never forget. Yeah. First pair of shoes, first pair of boobs. Put that on a t-shirt. Never forget. But what is it about action that you love so much?
Man, I mean, there's something about escapism. A lot of us...
Escapism? What do you mean escapism?
Like when you just want to escape from reality for a little while, right?
Okay.
A lot of us, we live lives and that are just kind of...
Very comfortable lives.
Yeah, a lot of day-to-day comfortable lives, relatively speaking, compared to how things used to be. Most of us, I don't know if you live in Sudan, maybe it's not so good. But if you are listening to the podcast in Sudan, wow, good on you. Thank you for joining us for the show. Join our Patreon.
We're glad you still have, we're glad you still have internet.
Yeah. But, there's this adventure of going out and seeing people do these amazing things that places you probably never get to go see, or things you'll never get to do. People doing extraordinary things. That's kind of the action adventure genre, and action specifically. It's just man, what we love the skill, right? Like martial arts action or gunplay action, gunfight scenes. We love getting to know these characters that are like us, right? We love an action scene because it's, Neo is a relatable character. Indiana Jones is a relatable character. Those things about them are like, man, they're kind of like us, but then they're doing these amazing things. So it's like this kind of aspirational aspect to it where it's like
I could do that too.
It makes you want to get out there and take on the world,
Yeah. I mean, I think you did an excellent job of explaining it. The whole escapism. New word for me, by the way, and I'm going to use it. But the whole escapism, a lot of us, we live, very normal lives, very vanilla lives. But to get the opportunity to immerse yourself in an entire new world of possibilities that, that consist of, a lot of action, consist of, death, despair, excitement, loss, gain, all these different aspects that, make us feel a specific way. Because I know when I watch action, I feel motivated, I feel inspired, because just like you said, these characters that they start off relatable, unless you're John Wick, then nobody can relate to John Wick, except for me, of course, because, I am John Wick.
Right.
But
you train John
Wick.
But
they make you feel just so good, and they make you feel like you can go out after you exit the theater and just crush the world. Yeah. So that's, for me, what is the best thing about the action genre. There's a couple different factors, and definitely one of the ones in my mind that I think it makes an action movie so cool are just the plethora of not only, standard weapons that they're using, but just like, just iconic weapons. Like, obviously the minigun from Predator is an awesome one. The guns from, just random example here, but the guns from Men in Black, just the futuristic sci-fi technology, the smallest gun that leaves the biggest boom, the Hattori Hanzo sword in Kill Bill, the chainsaw, isn't there like a chainsaw leg in, is it Planet M16
the
leg
M16
in Planet Terror?
Yeah, with the 203 attachment leg.
Yeah. Just there's these amazing guns and weapons that are just used, and in the creative process, I would love to see what goes through a writer's mind when they're like trying to come up with like an iconic weapon that the action star uses.
Yeah, it's
Ash's chainsaw hand. Thank you. Thank you very much. The chainsaw hand from Evil Dead, of course. An amazing weapon. Just the imagination that goes into the writing. I think that, plays a huge role into what makes action movies amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of times maybe the filmmakers are just big fans. Maybe they're just like, they love guns, right? They just want to get some guns in there, like John Wick. The whole John Wick series, it's become more and more iconic. It's almost like the car that Bond drives. Like, what car is he going to drive this film? In John Wick, you're like, what Terran Tactical custom-made gun is he going to shoot?
Yeah.
And what kind of, really, they can, so it's very like, like in, when he was choosing his weapons, it's almost like he's sampling fine wines, or and when,
especially in the second one.
Oh yeah, he's like a very good vintage, 5.56,
great year,
7.16.
yeah, 5.56, great round. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And then I think a lot of time. Well, I mean, one thing we can talk about, it gets into like another section where it's the fists and the feet themselves become deadly weapons.
The choreography, yeah.
Man, choreography has come so long. I remember growing up. And it was, there was like American action movies, and then there was like Asian action movies. Asian action movies was all like the high-end kung fu, style fighting, which super impressive, right? You got Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, and
these huge names, all these in martial arts,
iconic names.
Chuck Norris, yeah.
And then when it comes to martial arts, specifically that kind of genre, back in the day, you had Chuck Norris and Cynthia Rothrock and Daniel Bernhardt and JCVD, Jean-Claude Van Damme. I think he was a dancer, actually, not a martial artist.
He was a dancer, right? He wasn't a martial
artist. But he did.
Same,
Yeah, he could do those 360-degree kicks, man, But then I feel like it's evolved over the past, obviously, 40 years up to today, to where, Asian martial arts, they have their greats. That still is awesome. But I feel like Western action has really come a long way. With like things like, John Wick is more gunplay, but like Extraction and, the fisticuffs style, I guess, has really evolved, I think,
Yeah. I mean, we can see it from like, old school Bruce Lee movies up until talking about John Wick again, just because it is an amazing action series. Just the choreography in the John Wick series is, that's what makes that movie. It's just how these endless gun fu fighting scenes are just, to die for. They're absolutely amazing. And not only are they amazing, but the challenge of like memorizing all these, punches, these blocks, these throws, these kicks, that you have to respect the actors and the stuntmen, actually doing this. And I know Peter Lee Thomas, who we had in the beginning of the podcast, he's one of those experts. Like, I had such a deep respect when we were talking to him because, watching what he does, and then also watching your fight sequence that you did with him back in the day.
It's
honestly super impressive, man. Yeah, if you guys are new and you don't know what I'm talking about, what do they have to
go to YouTube
Israel
and type
Wright
in
fight scene?
Yeah, Israel Wright rooftop fight scene, and it's on there. It's got a couple hundred views or whatever, but.
Dude, it's awesome. It's
fun.
so
It's
good.
fun, man.
You do very good, yeah. I love when you pull out the bow staff and do the bow staff work.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part. Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. But you know what, man? Maybe I'm going to have to amend my statement, because even as I'm thinking about this, I say that Western action has evolved, but it has evolved in that I think it's adopted a lot of stuff, like Americans, like a good American, I guess maybe American, but like Westerners,
Our mixing pot
we
culture.
love to melt it all together, because a lot of the stuff I'm thinking about from John Wick or Extraction, I'm sure you could trace that back to things like C-Lot, Filipino stuff, fighting styles, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, a conglomeration of a bunch of different things. We kind of like pick and choose, and I guess it's up to the creative action team to meld all that stuff together and do like the gun fu stuff,
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great point. American filmmaking is just this mixing pot of different cultures, which, I mean, honestly makes me think this country is the best country in the fucking world because we have everything here. America,
and if we don't have it, we're going to borrow it from somebody else.
We're going to borrow it. Yeah, that's the plan right there. But now we have an amazing guest.
Now we're going to talk to our very special guest, Rawson Marshall Thurber. He has directed Dodgeball, Meet the Millers, Skyscraper, more recently Red Notice. So he's no stranger to the action genre. We're very excited to talk to him now. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you, writer, director, producer, an all-around great guy, Rawson Marshall Thurber. Rawson, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Not to mention one of the most jacked directors I've ever seen in my life. Good for you, buddy.
That's all Izzy's work. It's Izzy's work from back in the day.
That's right.
If I could ask, what is your guys' relationship? Because I know Izzy told me a little bit off camera, but how do you guys know each other?
CrossFit. CrossFit. Yeah. So before I got too old and injured, I did CrossFit at a great place called Brick, and Izzy was one of the instructors there, and he was just wonderful guy and really smart about it and kept me from hurting myself for most of the time. So that's how we knew each other, and then just sort of stayed in touch. And when you meet a good person, you stay in touch.
Nice. Yeah, amen. Yeah, it's few and far between in the Hollywood area. You got to hold on to the ones you got.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Well, Rawson, you have a lot of experience. Today we're talking about the action genre, the action movie genre specifically, and you have a lot of experience in that. How did you? Well, you could tell us about how you got into directing generally, but how specifically did you kind of jump on the action train? How did that start?
Sure. So, the first movie I made was a movie about adults hitting each other with big red rubber balls. It was called Dodgeball, and it came out in 2004. That was the first thing.
One of my most favorite movies. Dude.
Cameron,
that's amazing.
You have exceptional taste in cinema, my friend.
You dodge a wrench, you dodge ball.
So I made that one, and that was a sports comedy, obviously, right? And there was a little bit of, in finger quotes, action there, right? There's sports being played, so it's not people in rooms saying things. There's a little bit of activity, and so I had a little bit of experience there in terms of moving the camera and capturing what could loosely be described as action. But I'd always loved action films. Those are the kind of movies I grew up on, and loved them, and always thought about wanting to transition into that genre from comedy. And I love comedy as well. So I went from Dodgeball. I made a tiny little independent film that not a lot of people saw. That was just people talking in rooms. And then I made a movie called We're the Millers. And in We're the Millers, it was my first time getting to use a gunfire in a film. So we had a little bit of gunfire in it, and then some car stunts and one or two physical pieces, but I wouldn't, call it an action comedy. And then from there, I went to, from Millers, I made a movie called Central Intelligence with Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart. And that was a straight up action comedy. And so there was gunfire and car chases and explosions and all kinds of stuff.
And then you and The Rock got married, and he's in every film that you've ever been in after that.
I'm a big fan. And I highly recommend putting him in your movie if you can. He's a wonderful guy. And
yeah, we'll make sure we hit him up on the PCFM movie that we're playing. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that he's a perfect cast to play me because he looks identical.
Well, he's a great guy, and like I say, if you can get him in your movie, you should. And so then I made a straight action picture after Central Intelligence called Skyscraper with just Dwayne, and Dwayne versus a burning building. It's the only thing I could think of that would challenge him. And then
still came out on top.
Yeah, he sure did. And then literally, in fact, and then the last movie I made was came out on Netflix, and it was called Red Notice. And it starred Dwayne Johnson, Gal Gadot, and Ryan Reynolds. And that movie was sort of back more toward Central Intelligence in terms of it being an action comedy, but it was really more of an action adventure, small parenthetical comedy. So I guess long way around to saying that, like, I sort of built it brick by brick, and step by step. I didn't dive sort of into the deep end on action, and I'm glad I didn't. I learned a lot about how you do it, and certainly how you don't.
So then, you obviously this adventure you've taken in cinema to get from comedy to action adventure. It must have been a lot of learning experiences. A lot of not what to do, what not to do. But from your humble beginnings to where you find yourself now, do you have a favorite? Do you stick to your roots when you're looking to make new films? Like, do you want to make a comedy? Is that your favorite to make, or is action adventure now like your go-to? If you're going to make a movie, you want to do it because it's just so much fun. What would be your favorite? I guess I'm trying to say in a very long-winded and hard.
Cameron, that is no, I get it. That's just such a tough question to answer. It's
Sure.
What's your favorite child? It's so hard. I guess at this point in my career, I would say that I'm much more interested in making movies that have a sense of scope and size to them, but that are still fun and enjoyable. Sure. So I don't think I'm particularly keen on making a straight comedy anytime soon. I mean, there might be, like, if there was an unbelievable, cast that I wanted to work with, I'd probably go to it. But I think that comedy is in a pretty strange spot right now in terms of what what society finds funny and what they find offensive.
What you can get away with. What's not going to get you canceled in a way.
Well, there's certainly that. Like, there seems like less and less room for people to laugh or to be pleasantly offended, or to laugh along with a joke that makes fun of a certain group.
Ourselves.
That there's not a lot of grace given to the spirit of a joke, right? Or the intention of a joke. It's
like
all,
you can never make Dodgeball again.
Probably not the way we did. Probably not the way
you guys did it originally.
Yeah. Well, like, one of my all-time favorite comedies is Revenge of the Nerds. And if you watch that film, it's perfectly structured, by the way. You could never make that movie right now. Even watching it, you're like, oh my God, maybe am I going to get canceled for watching this?
Looking around the corner.
Yeah, exactly. but it's fantastically funny, and it was just a different time when folks I think were a little less on guard and a little less looking for trouble and looking to be insulted, and et cetera, et cetera. But that's not what we're here to talk about. So so the reason that I think I'm more interested in action now is because of that. I mean, I will say that it's also a lot of fun to make big, sprawling action pictures, and then I think, but there is nothing better, I think, in the theater than making an audience laugh. Like, when you've worked on a movie and you're playing it for an audience, and the movie's working and they're laughing, and there's like a big joke that's about to hit, and watching 400 people simultaneously rock with laughter in the theater is pretty fantastic. So that sort of thing is something that I don't want to give up. And so I think that's why I make sort of action comedies, or like making them, or bringing humor into action adventure. So I'm working on Red Notice 2 and 3 now. Or at least I was before the strike, and then I also over my shoulder. I have a sideshow collectible, Voltron, which I'm making at Amazon, and that's super excited, live action version, and it's very much an action adventure film, and it has humor in it, but it's not a comedy, and so I'm really excited about that, and I think that that's kind of where I want to focus in the next 10 years of my career, is kind of making stuff like that, making stuff that's fun, and awesome, that the whole family can watch, and that it's a good time.
So Ross, and we all kind of grew up around the same kind of action kind of stuff, and it's evolved, and there are certain tropes, both good and bad. Can you think of like certain action tropes, things that we've seen so many times in the past that you like, or maybe ones that you're like, oh, please, I want to stay away from that kind of thing.
Oh God!
Not so many
I mean, I
times,
think
you know?
I've perpetrated so many. I would hesitate to say I hate this trope, and then someone goes, "Hey, motherfucker, you did it 3 times," and I was like, so yeah. I mean, there are certain tropes that are that that are almost prerequisite for the genre, right? Like, so it's not about being afraid to do them, tropes, cliches, whatever you want to call it, but it's about how do you put your own top spin on it? How do you do it in a way that's either surprising or has a unique spin to it that you might not have seen before? I mean, I don't know, for whatever reason, is the one that came to mind is like, when like the hero drags somebody out of the lake and is giving them mouth to mouth and they don't come back to life, right? And like mouth to mouth and live, and then they stop and they're crying, and then the person goes and coughs up the water. Like, can we just have we don't have to just like, can we have like a decade long moratorium on that? I would appreciate that part of it. That would be nice. Yeah, I think that's, I don't know, that's the one that comes to mind. You try to avoid monologues, bad guy monologues if you can. But sometimes it's unavoidable. You need to lay some expositional pipe, and it's always that balance of wanting to make sure that you've given your audience enough information without spoon feeding them,
Yeah, gotcha.
Are there any that you can't stand?
I'm sure Izzy has very strong.
Can I make a guess? Can I make a guess? Is it just,
sure?
Do you hate it when like they don't reload their weapons ever, and it's just
yeah?
Oh, sorry, that's mine.
Is that yours, Cameron?
Wrong person. That's mine.
Sorry,
He just saw the Covenant. We both just watched the Covenant.
Oh yeah.
And really great film, but he said it, and I watched it again, and I'll be darned if Jake Gyllenhaal, those guys never reload their. I don't know until they run out at the very end,
yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
What about you? Is it
military elitist? So like any type of action, like as far as just like room clearing and tactics, I'll sit there and be Leonardo DiCaprio and be like the. I'm like, there it is. They're not doing it right.
Yeah,
so that's for me.
Yeah,
but obviously,
have there been any films, Cameron, that you've seen that do it right that you love, like 13 Hours or?
Okay, let's see. So I think. There's some good movies that do a lot. I mean, there's some terrible movies that do a really good job, and there's some great movies that do a really good job as well. I think Act of Valor was one that
saw it in the theater. I loved it.
Yeah. It's
horrible acting.
From a standpoint,
doesn't matter.
From a tactical standpoint, done amazingly.
Yeah.
Well, that's because they place such an emphasis on military advising on that film. They had the right dude.
I still remember the sound of that. I still remember the sound of that minigun on the boat on the river.
Oh yeah, when the SWAT guys come in to rescue in a hot exfil, that's an amazing scene.
Goodness gracious! What about Zero Dark 30? Did you think they did?
Zero Dark 30, the end scene where they're clearing the compound was done marvelously as well. Yeah, Osama. Yeah, that one was done great. And then obviously my favorite military movie of all time, Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, sure.
That's one of those great movies that does everything great. So there wasn't a lot, especially back there. Warfare has evolved so much from, World War II to it is now. But even back then, like we still use tactics that were ingrained in soldiers in World War II and then Vietnam and all these different combats and conflicts. But Saving Private Ryan did it perfectly. Like everything you could do. It's kind of like you can't do anything wrong in that era because there was no really rules.
Right.
But now, if you're making a new action movie with like the new technology, the new gear, the new tactics, I'm like sitting there with a magnifying glass and checking it out.
Oh,
geez. No, there's a lot of good stuff out there, but there's a lot of garbage.
We basically have 20 plus years worth of military veterans. I'm sure a lot of which they're either out in society or they've come into the entertainment industry or trying to break in. So there'll be a lot more eyes on movies in the future when it comes to and a lot more opportunity to do it right and to get that really firsthand knowledge and stuff.
Well, like that. I'll say that I've had military advisors on set, for certain things. Skyscraper, the beginning of Skyscraper for sure, and for me on the filmmaker side. I want to make sure we get it right. Like I don't want to do it the wrong way and look like a fool but you also have to have a little bit of leeway to make it look cool for camera or look right for camera. So I'm I'm in a sort of a bend it, don't break it kind of situation. So when I have a military advisor, I'm like, look, please stop us if we're doing it wrong. We want to do it right. If we can't do it right, there'll be a good reason for why we can't do it exactly the way it should be done. But I try to do my best. But I don't think anybody's gone to a movie and said, "Boy, that movie sucked," but they nailed that room clear, man. That was
That's why I've taken a step back, because I got to do, like, when I got out of the military, I was working in private security, and then I kind of weaseled my way into low level filmmaking, and I got the opportunity to work on that Christopher Nolan film Tenet. So I was involved in that project, and like I could definitely see that, you have these military advisors and you have the directors, but the director needs to make it look good, and the military advisors are only worried about the tactics and the uniforms. But there has to be some sort of compromise. So for me, when watching The Covenant, obviously there was a lot of inaccuracies, but the show needs to still go on somehow. So you're basically sacrificing accuracy for just all around an amazing shot, which I completely understand. So it's not the end of the world. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So Rawson, we want to ask you a very important question.
Sure.
What are your action movie essentials? Like, if you wanted to introduce somebody, an alien came down from space and said, "Introduce me to the action genre," it was like, well, you got to get these movies or whatever.
Oh my God.
5 movies or whatever.
Oh my God. Wow. That is.
And it's definitive, and we're going to live stream this, and we're going to get it.
Oh man. I'd like to reserve the right to come back and change my answers.
Sure.
Another time. That is an incredibly difficult question to answer. Because there's so many different types of action. Right. Like, are you talking about like, Hong Kong Jackie Chan action, or are you talking about Michael Bay action? Like there's such
golden hour all the time.
There's such a breadth to it. I guess in terms of like favorite action pictures, I guess I would say Heat is up there.
Amazing. We love Heat.
Yeah, of course.
Love Heat.
I mean, it's of course, who doesn't? It's a masterpiece.
We didn't pay him to say that, you guys.
Oh yeah,
so we talked about Heat before.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've talked about Heat in depth. That break contact scene when they're escaping the bank is actually done to standards. It is. We used to show dudes in the military that scene when teaching them how to break contact. Yeah, well, it's probably the best visual aid you can actually do for break contact. So yeah, Heat, we were big fans.
Yeah, that's the gold standard. I remember when I saw it in the theater, and it just the way that Michael Mann shot, cut, and didn't use score in that sequence is unbelievable. So I would say Heat. I would say. Die Hard's amazing as an action picture. It's not quite like literal, but it's so fun, and it's like 3 jokes short of a straight up comedy. If you watch it again, so Die Hard is certainly up there.
Is it a Christmas movie?
Personally, yes, I think it's a Christmas movie.
Absolutely. Okay.
But that's you can talk to whomever you.
Okay, we can keep this podcast going.
So and then in terms of like, but then you could talk about. You could talk about Quentin Tarantino does incredible action work, really the Kill Bill stuff, aside, like look at Pulp Fiction, look at Django Unchained, like these would not be considered action pictures, but the action sequences within them are fantastic. Incredibly impressive. You mentioned before Saving Private Ryan, like I don't think anybody can fuck with Spielberg when it comes to comes to action. Michael Bay, maybe the greatest action director to ever live. So you could take your pick there. My favorite film of his is 13 Hours.
Love it.
So I think that's up there. If you're just talking about gunplay, Zero Dark 30, we already mentioned. These are not like straight up action movies. But the sequences that they have in them are so super impressive. I'm trying to think of like, sort of the earlier Western stuff. There's a lot of cool John Ford shit that has great cowboy Western stuff. No Country for Old Men has some of the most terrifying action of all time, right? Sure. But that's not like blowing stuff up, car chase action, right? No.
It's a cattle prod action.
Yeah, well, yeah, Jesus, right? But you're like gripping your seat, or when Josh Brolin's character is running away from the truck, and they let the pit bull out to chase him, and I almost screamed in my chair. So I mean, it's such a hard question to answer because there's such a wide breadth of incredible action. Like if you look at 1917, right, Sam Mendes and Roger Deakins, right, the one uncut shot in finger quotes, but there's so many harrowing pieces there, whether it's in the opening when the two young heroes go into the German bunker, into their trench line and into the bunker, and then it all collapses. Like that's fucking terrifying and amazing.
Terrifying.
The end piece when the remaining heroes running through that sort of bombed out city, when there are flare lights falling and the shadows play as he's running for his life. The best action film that I've seen, the best war film I've seen, maybe since Saving Private Ryan, was most recently All Quiet on the Western Front.
It's fantastic.
Which is
fantastic.
Just like if you want to talk about war film versus action film, like if you want to talk about like I've never obviously been in war, I never served, and thank you both for your service.
Thanks for paying your taxes.
Well, I don't pay my taxes, but I do. But All Quiet on the Western Front. If you want to look at like the true horrors of war, like that's got to be in that conversation. As is the D-Day landing. And by the way, we're talking on June 6th.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Right.
Yeah,
So, forever grateful to those who stormed the beaches.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it was, 44. So, 80 years ago, I guess, coming up. So at any rate, there's so many wonderful action films, and then there's like silly action, right? And there's Bruce Lee action. Anyways, I'm sorry that I couldn't really answer the question. There's just so many.
Rawson, you kind of hit on something that I wanted to ask because I know we don't have a lot of time, but there is within an action movie or an action sequence, there is the kind of the technical side, like the skill with which the action is done with, whether it's the martial art or the gunplay or the camera work. Yeah. And then there is kind of the more character side where you are gripped by the action sequences because you have a stake in the characters. Like you know them, you have some sort of investment in them. And that all comes down to, kind of the stuff that doesn't happen when the action is happening, like in Red Notice, just, The Rock and Ryan talking about their dads and stuff, and it's like, oh, okay, he's like
have
me.
a dad too.
Yeah, you don't want him. You don't want him to fall off the cliff or jump from the train or whatever.
For sure. I think as it relates to that, like the two other that on the action picture thing that we could talk about, which relates to your question of like the actual skill of execution of the stunts, let's say, right? Of the physical action, whether it's gunplay or car chase or what have you, versus the character action, right, that you're talking about. So for me, if you look at the John Wick franchise, right, which is unbelievable when it comes to the stunt play,
amazing,
and this last one is 3 hours long, right? It's a 3 hour punch.
3 hours of nonstop in your face.
Yeah, right.
Incredible.
And for me personally, the falling downstairs.
Yeah, 45 minutes of falling downstairs.
While I appreciate the skill of that, I enjoyed the first John Wick more than the fourth John Wick, and I think that has to do with me connecting with the character more, right? Like that he was. He lost his wife and they killed his dog, and it's personal. And so, as silly as that sounds, right? And so I felt more there, but then you look at something like, Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? The Indiana Jones franchise, which again, coming out this summer. I love those movies, and I'm sure I'm not alone, but you love those movies because, and that's another kind of action, right? That's the kind of swashbuckling action, which is what I aim for when I'm trying. But you love Indiana Jones, right? You love Harrison Ford in that role. You love that character. And the reason that you love that character, is because Indiana, can take a punch rather than give a punch, right? Like he's not the biggest guy, right? He has to think his way out of things. He can throw a punch, but it's not. He's his back isn't as wide as a coffee table, right? Like he's there to he's in some sense an everyman. And when you look at what everybody's favorite scene is in Raiders of the Lost Ark, of course, is when Indy squares off with the swordsman, right? Right? And it's like, oh, here we go. And he pulls out his gun, bang, right? And why does everybody love that? Because it's humor, right? Because you laugh at that moment. And when you laugh with a character, you're bonding with that character, right? Because you're subconsciously saying, I see the world in the same way that you see the world, right? We share this perspective. I wish I'd done that. That's very funny. I feel that makes me laugh, etc. So those are different types of action, right? John Wick is incredibly skilled and incredibly beautifully choreographed action. And in Raiders, you look at when Indy fights the bald Nazi on the right in the plane, like Spielberg made that up on the day. Like he blocked that on the day, right? And you see Indiana Jones fighting dirty, throwing sand in the guy's face, and it's only through dumb luck that the big guy gets chopped up and Indy makes it, right? And Indy gets punched right in the nose and falls flat on his ass. So then I would talk about like what I think is like the best of all of those worlds, the best of all the action stuff of late is the Mission Impossible franchise, right? And that works for a whole bunch of reasons, but mostly it works because of Tom Cruise, right? Because Ethan Hunt, aka Tom Cruise, is someone you love and you care about. And Tom Cruise does a thing that nobody does anymore, which is he is essentially P.T. Barnum, right? Like part of the sell of that entire genre is that he's really doing these stunts. He's really holding on to the side of a plane. He's really jumping that bike off of the side of a cliff and parachuting. And you see him selling that all the way. And when they're selling the movie, yes, they put out a trailer, but they also put out 8 minutes about the stunt that they're doing and that they're really doing it. When he climbs the Burj Khalifa, that's really him climbing the Burj Khalifa. And that's something that you can't, that so few people in the world, one person in the world, in fact, does. So that's one of the main things that elevates Mission. And so when you talk about a character, like that's a different blend, right? You care about Ethan Hunt because he cares about his team, right? But you care about Ethan Hunt because you care about Tom Cruise, and you know he's put more into it than you will and than you ever have, and so you're willing to plunk down your $25 or $30 in an IMAX to see him, risk his life.
Yeah, there's almost like a primal connection there. Yeah.
For sure.
So on that thought, then, practical effects or CGI for an action movie?
Yeah, well, that's a great. The easy answer is practical, right? Because who wants CGI? But having done a few of these, I will say this: that when the best is, and you're gonna hate this answer, but the best is a blend. It's a blend of both. And the only time that you'll notice CG or CGI is if it's done poorly. There are so many shots I can sit there with you and point them out that you don't know. You don't know it's a CG shot, but it's a CG shot. Right. And when it's done poorly, you're like, ugh, why didn't they shoot this practically? And there are certain things that you can't shoot practically for, certainly sci-fi things you can't. Right. But but there are other things you can't shoot practically, for safety issues, for simple safety reasons, or it wouldn't make sense. Right. Why would you risk the health of a stunt player when you can do this with a digidouble and no one will ever know? And the other thing is when you look at where action came from, right? We started making action pictures, silent era, right? And, you look at like, Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton, Harold Lloyd, all those guys, right? That was action and the Westerns and all of that stuff. But that all had to be practical because there was no choice, there was no choice. And then as CG started to come to the fore in the late 90s, right, and got so much better in the last 5 years, and it will continue to get better, is the audience's expectations of what constitutes quality action continues to rise and rise and rise and rise and rise, as it should, right? So if you are a filmmaker who's saying, well, yeah, I'm going to do everything practically, that's great. if you want that to be a sell for the movie, right? In the same way Tom Cruise he does things practically. If you're like, look, we did it all practically. And that makes a lot of sense, but you will be limited in terms of the quality of the effect that you can find. And you talk about Chris Nolan stuff. You worked on Tenet, Cameron. Like, he goes out of his way to not use CG, right? Yeah. But he does use CG. Like Tenet, there were 700 visual effect shots. 700.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, that's not nothing. Mm-hmm. You know?
No, it was a lot. It was a crazy experience.
I bet. So for me, it's a long way around to saying, like, I don't give a shit. Like, what I want is the best shot. I want the best experience for the audience. I want them to not think about whether it's practical or CG. I don't want them to ever come into their mind. I want the most effective shot that I can get. And my first step is, how do we do it in camera, which is practical, right? How do we do it in camera? And then if we can't do it in camera in a great way, in an A+ way, then we talk about CG. But it's that way first. That's my approach, at least.
Nice, man.
Great answer.
Awesome. Great answers. Great answers all. Last thing, I guess, before we let you go,
sure.
What can you tell us about what you're working on now? Anything you're excited for in the future?
Yeah, well, like I mentioned before, I'm working on, again, I say working on, but we're in a writer's strike at the moment, so my pencils are down. So I'm not.
You will be working on
a UK production company.
I know. Well, I'm also in the DGA, so we just made a deal. So like, it's a weird thing, right? Where like, I'm not writing anything, is maybe the way to say it. But
right.
So working on a live action version of Voltron, which
Amazing.
I'm incredibly excited about. Red Notice 2 and 3. So I finished writing those scripts, and we're getting ready to start next summer. It looks like. And then the hat that I'm wearing is The Division, and I'm attached to direct the feature film version of The Division, starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Jessica Chastain.
Nice.
But we've run into, I don't want to say hiccup, but there's something else that I'm working on that relates to The Division and more. That I am incredibly excited about, that I cannot talk about, but it would be perfect for your particular podcast. And when I can talk about it, if you'll have me, I would love to come back and tell you all about it.
Absolutely, Ross. We will have you. We'll have you back anytime, man. It's been really, really great talking to you and catching up and gaining some action movie wisdom.
No, I did my best. It was a pleasure, guys, and thanks for having me. And let's do it again soon.
Okay. Yeah, we look forward to having you again, Ross, and we appreciate your time, man. And yeah, looking forward to the next time.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers, buddy.
All right, guys.
Well, that was an awesome interview. Big appreciation for Rawson coming on here and speaking with us. That was cool, man. It's not every day you get to talk to like a big time director and kind of get their insight into, what it is to make these action movies.
Yeah. Rawson's just like, ever since I ran into him at the CrossFit gym we used to be at, just super cool dude, just really down to earth. Really just just a real guy and very likable and very open. And I'm very thankful that he took some time to hang out with us and lay down some action movie knowledge. So all the best to him in the future. We'll keep an eye out for all the projects that he's going to be a part of in the future. So
hell yeah, we will. But with that, I think we have a quick fan question that is directed to Izzy and I, and then we'll transition to our game and take us out. What do you say, buddy?
Let's do it, man.
All right, so this fan question comes to us from Matt H. via our email, which is the PCFMpodcast@gmail.com. So if any of you guys want to connect with us or shoot us an email with a question or just anything you got, go ahead and send it to the PCFMpodcast@gmail.com.
And folks, if you want to have more intimate interactions with us, go on over to our Patreon and join us there, PCFM Podcast on Patreon. And that's where you get the full-length episodes, extra episodes per month, and we do a live movie stream every month with our top-tier patrons. So go on over there and join us. It's a good time, folks. We hope to see you there.
Yes, we do. And Matt H. would like to know, if you hadn't joined the military, what would you have done or would be doing today? Ooh, very interesting question, because I honestly don't know what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. So I think for me, just a quick answer here is, if you've listened to this podcast, before I joined the military, I was a professional hip-hop dancer. So, yeah, I know, shocker, right, if you're new to here.
Dude, so awesome.
But Yeah, so I'm thinking, I was actually really good at that skill. I danced professionally on a professional competition hip hop team. Also did some stuff in Hollywood, as a dancer. So stick to what you're good at, right? I'd probably be still in the dancing world and probably be like, part of the Jabberwockies or something. Who knows?
Nice, man.
Start my own crew.
Nice.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Call them the camera walkies.
Camelwalkies? The Camelwalkies? I think.
I don't know how that was.
I don't know. We'll dial it down. But yeah, I think that's what I would be doing, honestly. What about you, Izzy? What do you think you'd be up to if you hadn't gone to Special Forces?
Right. If I think back to what I was doing at the time when I decided to join, because for me at that time in my life, it was kind of an impulsive decision to join the Army. Because I used to drive by the recruiter's office every day, coming out of Santa Clarita, coming down into Los Angeles to do background work. Because I was pursuing an acting career. I was pursuing acting, but I was kind of just like, I wasn't very mature about it. I didn't really have a plan or anything. So I imagine I'd still be trying to do that, maybe in a different way. Hopefully I would have moved out of my aunt and uncle's place and actually into the city and actually gotten a job. But I guess I still am kind of pursuing it in a way with content creation. But, so I think that's my answers. I'm doing it now. It's the same thing.
Yeah, so we'd be doing those things or we would be dead.
Or
those are the two
those
options.
are the only two
Yeah,
options.
or we'd be just dead.
But I mean, see, the thing I think about with my career is all the opportunities, the major opportunities I've had in my career have been because I joined the military, because of my military experience. So
yeah, absolutely.
I don't know what I'd be doing, how I would differentiate myself
idea.
in this day and age, just being a halfway good-looking white guy,
Yeah, there you go, man. Well, it seems like you got all the recipe to success just being that.
That's
so,
right. There you go.
Good for you, buddy. Okay, Matt. Well, we hope we answered your question. Like we said before, if you guys have any questions for us, please don't be shy. Send us an email to pcfmpodcast@gmail.com or consider joining us on our Patreon. It's an amazing time. But as we come to a close of this awesome episode of the PCM Podcast, like always, we love to end it with a game. So I have a game for you, Izzy, if you feel like playing.
I feel it. I'm feeling it.
Okay. Even if you didn't feel like it, we still have to play.
bad,
So
yeah.
there, you have no say. But this game is called Last Action Hero, and it's strictly trivia about the Arnold Schwarzenegger film. Just kidding. This one is complex, but should be fun. You have to try and guess a character's name by my description of their fist. I think there's a typo, or there's not fist. I don't want to describe a fist, Chris.
Yeah.
Their description of their first and last name.
First and last.
For Cam.
Okay.
Okay, and this note right here says for Cam, so I'm going to read it in my head to make sure that you don't get any points here.
It might actually be an interesting idea to describe an actor's fist and see if I can.
Yeah, the fist, right?
know what
it's got
the
5
actor
fingers and they curl
There's a
into a
scar
ball.
over the third knuckle.
Okay, let's try to figure this one out because you're right, Chris. This is complex, but we're going to figure it out together.
Is there
So
a warm up? Okay.
There is a
Okay.
warm up. So I'm going to give you two clues of their name together, and then you tell me the name of the action star
Okay.
or character. Okay, so for the warm up, first name, state whose capital is Indianapolis. Last name, the famous actress in Conan.
Oh, I get it. It's almost like puns or whatever. Indiana Jones.
That is correct.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so I think we understand the point of this game.
Yeah,
right?
it's it's
Whew,
the first
it
and last
is complex,
name
Chris.
of the action character, but the names are described in a different way. It's almost like
Yes.
hints.
Yes. Okay.
Cool.
Are you ready to play,
Yeah,
my
let's do it,
friend?
man. I think I can handle this.
Okay. So first name, another name for a toilet. Last name, a Keanu Reeves movie.
Say that one more time.
So the first name, it is the first name. So the clue for the first name is it's another name for a toilet, and the clue for the last name is a Keanu Reeves movie.
Oh man, gee whiz. It's gonna say crapper mnemonic, but
Crapper mnemonic. It has to be a name of an action star.
it has to be the name of an
or an action character star.
action character star. So it's another name for a toilet. Man, another name for a toilet. Oh, okay. Wait. Wait, and then what was the second one?
It's a Keanu Reeves movie.
Keanu Reeves movie.
I'll give you another hint for the first one.
I mean,
In Philadelphia, this is a noun for everything.
oh really? Oh,
Yeah, they call everything this. It's a person, place, or thing in Philly. They refer to it as this for the first name.
oh, dang it. I mean, I think John. There's John, and then a Keanu Reeves movie. It's John Wick, right? There's John Wick, but John Wick it would be John Wick. I'm trying to think of another.
There's other Keanu Reeves movies out
There's so many Keanu Reeves movies, though.
Think about one that just has one. It's just one. I'll give you 5 more seconds.
John Speed, man, I don't know.
3, 2, 1. John Matrix.
John Matrix. Oh, from Commando.
Commando.
Oh, John
Yeah.
Matrix. Good one. Legit. That's cool.
Good one. Legit. Okay. Yeah, this is pretty tough, man. I would not want to be in your shoes, so
Oh,
I'm glad I'm not.
You really got to put your
But
thinking
okay.
cap on for this one. How many of you got that one out there sitting in
Yeah.
your cars?
Okay. Moving on. This one seems a little bit okay. First name, actor Steve Blank. So fill in the blank. First name is actor Steve Blank. Last name offshore oil blank.
Martin Riggs from Lethal Weapon.
Nice, man.
Nice.
Yeah, you got it.
Martin
It is
Riggs.
indeed. So actor Steve Martin. Last name offshore oil rigs.
Yeah, offshore oil rigs.
There
Martin
we go.
Riggs. That's like
Wow,
Riggs
he
and
really put a lot of effort in this.
yeah, it's good, Chris. Riggs
Yeah,
and
this is
Murtaugh.
good, Chris. This is a good one.
Riggs and Murtaugh from Lethal Weapon. That's a
Okay.
good action movie series.
That's a good action movie. All right, here we go. Next one, you got 3 left. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. First name, American Sniper, Chris Blank. Last name, Chocolate Peanut Butter Cup Candy.
Oh, that's Kyle Reese from Terminator.
Ding, ding, ding. You
Hey,
got it,
all
buddy.
right. See, now I'm
nice.
getting into the
okay.
rhythm, you know?
You're getting your rhythm. You're getting your rhythm for sure. All right. Speed round. Just going right into the next one.
Okay.
First name, Big Bad in the Friday the 13th movie. Last name, your birthday celebrates the day you were blank. So first name, Big Bad in Friday the 13th.
Jason Bourne. Jason Bourne. My God, it's Jason Bourne.
Ding, 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 buddy. You got that one right. Nice. You're killing it.
I love it.
Yeah, you definitely found your rhythm
Yeah,
here.
Chris-
I think that first one was the most challenging
Yeah,
one.
I was going to say, Chris, we got to bring this one back because now that we kind of know the rhythm of it, it's kind of
You
exciting.
don't look so silly.
Yeah, it's like, well, what? Say it again?
Yeah, what? Say it again one more time. Okay. Anyways, last one. Let's see if you can finish it strong here, buddy. Nickname for a person hiring a prostitute. Last name, where the flame of a candle lives. So first name, nickname for a person hiring a prostitute. Last name, where the flame of a candle lives.
Gotcha. Yeah, a nickname. When you're hiring a prostitute, you're a John, and where the candle hides is a Wick. John Wick.
That is correct. Honestly, I had no idea what a person getting a I didn't know their name is John. It's just,
Yeah.
is that like a common name for somebody that uses
I think
prostitutes?
it's it might be one of those general names that police use, like a police term. Like in Vietnam, the
John
enemy was
Doe.
called Charlie. In
Yeah.
Iraq, it was called Haji. It's like the general name that you give to something.
Yeah, I got you.
It's like, oh, we
Look
got
at that John over there.
or a perp.
Yeah. Or a perp. Oh, I got you. Okay. Well, cool, man. Yeah, you cleaned out house
Nice.
at the end there. We struggled a little bit in the beginning, but we were still figuring out this game. So I think you did really good, man.
Oh, thanks, man. That was fun. It was fun once you got into the rhythm of it.
Yeah, sure. Well, folks, most importantly, we hope you had fun. And again, a special shout out and a big thank you to Rawson Marshall Thurber for joining us on this podcast, giving us his insight into what it is to be making action movies in this day and age. So thank you again to him. Izzy, you got anything?
No, man, no. Thank you, Rawson. All the best to you in your future endeavors, folks. If you haven't checked out his movies, in fact, I'm telling you, you probably have, because I think everybody we know and their mother has seen Dodgeball. And
Dodgeball. We're the Millers.
Yeah, We're the Miller.
They're classic
Or
comedies.
Meet the Millers. Meet the Millers.
We Are the Millers.
We Are the Millers. Wait, I thought it was Meet the Millers. Did I say it wrong?
No, it's We. I just watched it 3 days ago. It's We Are the
Well,
Millers.
it's Meet the Millers in the notes, so I'm sorry, guys. I messed it up again. Anyway, that Millers one, with what's his name before he became Adam Warlock. Anyway, the British actor guy, he got both. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's been fun, folks. We will see you on the next one. Until then,
Cue music.
what's going on, everybody? You just listened to the free version of the PCFM podcast. If you want full-length versions of podcast episodes, plus much, much more, head on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/PCFM podcast.
That is right, Israel. If you want access to this full episode, you have to subscribe to the Fuzzy Private tier, which is our cheapest tier on Patreon at $5 a month. But if you are interested in a little bit more, we also have the Salty Sergeant tier at $8 a month and the Lifer tier at $12 a month. So hopefully we will see you there, PCFM family. Cue music.